I think it's time for a look at some more Super Nintendo games. I'm Mr. MegaManFan. This is the Retro Hunting Adventures, and we'll be right back after these words from Megaran.
Yo, this is MegaManFan, and you need to rock and or roll on over to Mr. MegaManFan's YouTube channel, because it's all that rush to make it happen. Peace!
So I recently had a chance to pick up a stack of Super Nintendo games from a friend who was downsizing their collection, and today we'll start with The Adventures of Dr. Franken. This game came out for both Game Boy and Super Nintendo pretty close to a year apart. December 1992 at an unknown date on the Game Boy, but December 1st of 1993 for Super Nintendo. Now, I wanted to like this game, and I tried really hard to like this game, but unfortunately, it's not that great. You have a couple of attack moves, you can kick and punch, and you have this weird-looking house with staircases that are very difficult to traverse for some reason. It's easy to go up, it's very hard to go down. I don't know why they designed it that way. And enemies run into you because you move at high speed, so they hit you before you can even see them coming, which only adds to the increasing difficulty. Also, this box looks like it should have an item in it or be destructible, but I can't seem to do anything to it. And when I want to attack, I can't, and then my character freaks out and starts making faces, and he doesn't even die, he just kind of spazzes out a little bit. I don't understand this game. And apparently it was not a huge success because ports for other platforms were in development and were canceled outright. A Sega Game Gear version and a Nintendo version never saw the light of day. There was a sequel on Game Boy called Dr. Franken 2, but if this is bad on Super Nintendo, I've got to think on Game Boy it's not going to be any better, so I can't imagine why they did a sequel. For the record though, this game was developed by Elite Systems and published by Kemco, with programming by Mark Crane and art by David Percival. The music was composed by Mark Cooksey, and that's probably the best part of the game. Other than that, I can't recommend Dr. Franken to you, and I would suggest not playing it. Next we have Airstrike Patrol, or ASP for short, developed by Opus and published by Sega. Now, for whatever reason, this game does something really strange that I can't explain. When you get cutscenes, it squashes all of the text and the graphics into a tiny little window in the middle, but when you're playing the actual game, it's full screen like normal. Were they attempting to go for some sort of high-resolution mode for those cutscenes and then didn't program it well? Or did they convert it over from a PC game and then didn't take into account the resolution and the aspect ratio? I wish I knew the answer. What I can answer for you is it came out February 18th of 1994 in Japan, September 1994 in the European Union, and last, North America, in January of 1995. So they weren't in any hurry to bring it to this market, which makes it a slightly rare game when you're looking for Super Nintendo games to collect. It goes for about $20 loose and $50 complete, and I would suggest to you that unless you're really hardcore into isometric, plane shooting games, it's not necessarily worth that. I'll give it credit for a few things. I like the different loadout options where you can select the missiles, bombs, and guns that you want to arm your aircraft with, and it does have more voice samples per capita than the average Super Nintendo game does, but I find the controls are rather slippery. Targeting is very hard to do. You can't lock onto anything very easily, whereas your enemy, they can seem to find you with no problem. Look, every single shot they fire is smacking right into me. And I just don't know that I could spend endless amounts of time playing this game, so if I hadn't gotten it in a bundle with 6 other games, I probably would have taken a pass. Next up is a game that I think a lot of people have discovered through YouTubers and Twitch gamers streaming it and playing it. This is Kid Klown in Crazy Chase by Kemco. Thankfully, that increased exposure hasn't made it too expensive as of yet. It goes for $12.45 loose, $35 complete, so still something of a bargain at this point. It has a plot, but the plot isn't necessarily important to the gameplay. What you need to do in Kid Klown and Crazy Chase is stay ahead of a bomb. The bad guy lights a fuse on the bomb, and then you gotta run downhill to get to where the bomb is set to explode, picking up whatever items you're required to pick up along the way. This is one of those rare Super Nintendo games that came out first in the United States before Japan, but only just barely. September 1994 in North America, October 21st, 1994 in Japan, at an unknown date in the European Union in 1995. Speaking of the differences between Japan and North America, I discovered something while doing my research for this video. There was a Game Boy Advance version that came out in North America and Europe, but never got released in Japan. It was canceled before it was ported to the Japanese market. I'm not sure why they think we like clowns so much more than they do. In fact, I would think it would be exactly the opposite. There's also a bit of an interesting backstory behind these games. The first one in the series, Kid Klown in Nightmare World, came out on the Nintendo and was actually a sprite swap of a game called Mickey Mouse 3 Yume Fusen. It was only made in Japan because they only had the license for Disney characters in Japan, so they just put this character named Kid Klown in the game instead, and then they made Kid Klown his own series of games and followed it with Kid Klown in Crazy Chase. I don't think this is going to go down as one of my all-time favorite Super Nintendo games. It's very difficult to plan where to jump and land in the right place because of the 3D isometric angle that you have. I've seen people master it from those aforementioned streams, but I have a feeling it would take me a long time to get good at it to the point where I memorize when the objects are going to fly at you, when to jump, when to collect the items. It just doesn't flow naturally like a flat 2D platforming game does, or even a 2.5D one where you can see 3D depth, but you're still going left to right, right to left, up, down, diagonally, whatever. It feels off. You're never quite landing where you think you're landing when you're playing this game, and it just drives you bats after a while. I would say try it though. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. At least out of the 3 games that I've played so far this week on this episode of the Retro Hunting Adventures, it would be my favorite, but that's not high praise. That's lukewarm praise at best. Next up is a game that has only grown in respect over the years for the way it innovated 3D perspectives using Mode 7 on Super Nintendo and spawned a variety of sequels on Nintendo platforms afterward. This is Pilotwings, and as you can see, this was a rental copy. I don't even want to try to peel that sticker off because I'm afraid I'll destroy the label if I do, but this game definitely has some history behind it. This was a launch title for the system, both for the Super Famicom in Japan and for the Super Nintendo in North America, where it came out December 21st, 1990 in Japan and August 13th, 1991 in the United States, with a release in the European territories in 1992. Now, thankfully, even though this game is well lauded, well esteemed, and all of that, it has not shot up to a ridiculous price point where you can't afford to get a copy of it for yourself. Loose $10, complete about $30. So if you've never played Pilotwings before, I definitely recommend trying it in emulation and finding out if you like it, but it's very easy to get into. I mean, what's not fun about skydiving, parachuting, doing aerial tricks, landing on targets, and scoring the most points you can by controlling your rate of descent and maneuvering to land exactly where you want? It's one of those games that fits the mantra of easy to learn, difficult to master, and it makes you want to keep playing it over and over again. The scaling and rotating that's done here was incredibly impressive for the time and made the Super Nintendo look even more powerful than it was. It's amazing how well the graphics in this game still hold up to the present day. Pilotwings is by far my favorite in this video. Now this next one makes me nervous enough I'm not going to include my footage in this episode. It will be a separate upload because Power Rangers The Fighting Edition has the words Power Rangers in it. And the last time I featured something with Power Rangers in the title, I ended up having to edit the footage out of the video and re-upload the video. So let's move on to Tinstar. Unfortunately, there is a problem with Tinstar that we can't get around no matter what I do. This is a light gun game, and there is no way for me to emulate shooting the Super Scope 6 at my computer to capture gameplay footage for you. So I can only show you this looping intro sequence and tell you that it was made by Software Creations and released in November of 1994 only in the North American territory, which isn't surprising since they gave it a Western rootin' tootin' gun shooting theme that probably doesn't resonate with Japanese audiences, so it was never going to be a hit there. And I just wish I could show you more of it, but it's not possible unless I find a hack of the game that would allow me to play it with something other than the light gun. So sadly, we must move on. Finally, this week on the show, we have Ultimate Fighter, but if you're expecting mixed martial arts or UFC, I've got some news for you. That's not what this game is all about. They certainly intended the marketplace confusion, though, because it came out December 1992 in Japan and didn't get released in North America until June of 1994, by which time the Ultimate Fighting Championship was already a thing. They'd had their first pay-per-view in Denver, Colorado, and gained some infamy to the point where they were banned from certain pay-per-view outlets and couldn't run in certain states because it was deemed human cockfighting by people like the late Senator John McCain. So whether you agree or disagree with his views, completely irrelevant to the point. They were trying to cash in on the controversy. But in Japan, this game was actually called Hiryu no Ken S, Golden Fighter. And it's got a rather wacky story with a demon named Dargon who has been revived to destroy the Flying Warriors. Who are the Flying Warriors and why should you care? Not important. All you need to know is that Dargon sends his evil minions up against you, and you've got to scroll from left to right, beating them up one at a time as you work your way to him to defeat him and save the world. Pretty standard plot-wise for a side-scrolling belt action game, but also pretty fun. Apparently it was so well received in Japan that it even got a sequel, Hiryu no Ken S Hyper version, which added turbo speed to make the combat faster. Sort of like Street Fighter 2 Turbo. They saw what worked and they made it even faster so that people would enjoy it even more. Culture Brain had something here. I like this game, despite their cheap attempt at a controversial cash-in, which I'm honestly surprised that the people at UFC didn't sue over, but then maybe the marketplace wasn't nearly as confused as it would have been 10 or so years later when the Ultimate Fighter reality series was on Spike TV. Then they really would have been in hot water. Back then you could probably just get away with calling it Ultimate Fighter because there wasn't a TV show. It was only UFC and only on pay-per-view. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. The bottom line is, if you want to get Ultimate Fighter, it's not the least nor the most expensive of the side-scrolling belt action games that are on this platform. Loose, $16, complete, $36. So it's not a bargain title, but if you spot it in a bargain bin, you might want to go ahead and grab it because it's your lucky day. I think this one is well worth revisiting for multiple playthroughs, and I'm going to continue playing it as soon as I'm done with this episode. So, as always, this has been the Retro Hunting Adventures with your host, Mr. MegaManFan. Please do all of the things that will help this channel grow, like the video, subscribe if you aren't a subscriber, and share it with a friend and tell them that the Retro Hunting Adventures covers new games every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.